In this video, I'm going to talk about how our second week postpartum with our son Thomas has been. I'll be going over the following of how they've been progressing: breastfeeding, sleeping, doctor's appointments / health, temperament, and how I've been doing postpartum. I'm going to start off with breastfeeding. Breastfeeding has been going really well. He generally feeds every 2 to 3 hours. He feeds for about 10 to 15 minutes at a time, still isn't really interested in taking the second boob. He tends to fall asleep. He has continued, though, to cluster feed, at least at some point almost every day, though. It's usually for like 3 to 4 hours, and he basically needs to be fed every hour. And instead of feeding for the full 10-15 minutes, he feeds for about 5 to 10 minutes. And so I think this is part of why he wants to be fed every hour. He's not eating as much, but he falls asleep and I can't wake him up. I know last week I talked about using the cold cloth to try and get him to wake up, and this week that has just stopped working. Once he is out, he is out. There is no waking him up. But luckily most of the cluster feeds have been during the day. There was one night though, Tuesday night, he cluster fed all night long. I was up every hour, whether it was because I needed to feed him, change his diaper, or he was upset because he needed to be burped, he had some gas. I was up every hour. And when Richard woke up in the morning to go to work, he was like, wow, that was like a really good night's sleep. We did like really well. How are you feeling? And I was a little cranky. I was like, I've been up every hour all night with our son. And he was like, oh, I am so sorry. I'm gonna go get ready for work now. It was pretty funny, but overall I have to say I'm feeling really good. Seems to be getting enough food, and been doing really well exclusive with breastfeeding, so feeling really great about that. Sleeping, we're having more awake time now, so he seems to have an awake period in the morning. It's usually sometime between 9 and noon, and he's awake for anywhere from like an hour to 2 hours, and then we have another one in the evening, usually between like 7 and 9. And so with these awake times where he's up and alert, I'm trying to do more different types of tummy time, trying to encourage the neck strength and that, as well as introducing story time. I know it may be a little early, but I don't think it's ever too early to start to get into the routine for story time and early literacy. So besides the awake times, his sleeping has been pretty good. He still has usually at least 1 2 to 3 hour sleep during the night, which is really nice for me. 2 to 3, 3 to 4, sorry. One usually 3 to 4 sleep during the night, and then the others are usually between 2 and 3. So I'm feeling pretty good. Getting at least a 3-hour stretch in the middle of the night seems to really help and make a difference. Tuesday night when I was up every hour, it was just crazy. But I also learned this week though why I should not drink coffee. So Saturday I got up with my husband, we had a nice breakfast, and we made a big fresh pot of coffee, fresh pressed coffee. And I hadn't been drinking any coffee since I'd been pregnant because the smell and the taste just threw me right off. I could not drink it. But finally, coffee smelled good and it tasted good. So I had 1 cup and it was so good. And then Thomas was wired and awake and fussy the rest of the day, and I'm pretty sure became just overtired, and it obviously went through my system and went to him, and it was just a really rough day. So we learned no coffee for Sarah for the foreseeable future. But like I said, he's currently sleeping between about 2 to 4 hours at a time, and he's doing really well in the sleep department, so I'm pretty happy with that. So on to doctor's appointments. So we had our 1 week follow-up on Monday, so it was actually 10 days after, and got in, and the first thing they do is they measured him, and he was 56.5 centimeters long, so he was 55 centimeters at birth, so he's grown about 1.5 centimeters. Then we went and put him onto the scale, and something was wrong with the machine because he came up 5 pounds, 4.5 ounces. And the nurse went to go put this in the computer, and I was like, there's no way this can be right. I'm like, he was 8 pounds at birth. And she's like, well, you know, babies can lose some weight. I was like, 3 pounds worth of weight? I really does not seem like this can be right. So she had me then go on the scale and weighed me, and then they added Thomas to the scale. And so then that came out different. So then she wanted to put him back on the baby scale. So we put him back on the baby scale, and it turned out that was the same. So he actually is 8 pounds, 10.5 ounces, which is great because he has completely surpassed his, is great because he's already surpassed his birth weight. So that is fantastic. They were extremely happy with his weight gain. It meant that, yes, I am producing enough for him in my breastfeeding, which is fantastic. So from that, we scheduled our next appointment for 2 weeks later. Normally they would have waited till about a month, but because I'm a first-time mom, they just want to bring, to do a follow-up just in case I had any concerns or questions at all. So really happy with how the doctor's appointment went. Following the doctor's appointment, though, on Tuesday, a week after his umbilical cord had fallen out, his belly button began to bleed again. And at first I didn't really think too much of it. It was just a little bit of blood. It dried and it crusted. And so I was just using a cloth just to kind of pat at it and wash it out, not digging at it because I'd been told not to do that with the umbilical cord once it came out. And I didn't think too much of it. I thought it was probably just in the healing process. But I ended up, it was still full of a bloody and crusty come Friday. And I had been noticing that on his clothes, when I took clothes off of him, that the insides would have a bit of bloody crust on them, and that when breastfeeding even, it would rub off some blood residue as well. So Friday morning, I ended up calling the health line, the early start health line, just to talk to a nurse about what was going on and if I needed to go in and take him to the doctor. So after talking and going, sorry about that, had some technical difficulties and had to feed Thomas. But where was I? Right, so I ended up calling the early start helpline to talk to a nurse on Friday because it still just hadn't healed. And it was still kind of full of crusty blood, and I noticed that it had been on like the inside of his clothing when I took his clothing off, and it had been rubbing off when I breastfed him, leaving some blood residue. So I called the health link, and so they told me that fair skin babies can have more sensitive skin, and that it's just very possible that it became irritated with the clothing and being rubbed up against my bras and that it has just been irritated. She said that as long as that there wasn't any red vines kind of coming out from it, going up the chest, and it didn't look infected or very red and swollen around it, that I shouldn't worry about it too much. That just for the next 48 hours, that I should just let it have as much air as possible and leave Thomas out of clothes and just let it air out, just to wipe it out daily and to let it be. She said, though, if it did start to look like it was infected or that there was little red vines coming up, to call right back and go see a doctor, or that if it lasted more than 48 hours airing out and it was still full of crusty blood, to then call back. So that's where we left that. So we are just leaving that open to air out for now, and we'll see where that goes. His temperament. So Thomas's temperament has still been really chill. He is, as long as there is nothing wrong, he is just chill and laying there. He's a bit more fussy when he wants to, when he's hungry and has been cluster feeding, but besides the cluster feeding fussiness, still pretty chill baby. As my instructor for our pre and postnatal classes has stated, the first week is usually really great, as that is how newborns get us to take them home. The second week, things start to get tougher, or usually a little tougher. So I'll admit, things have been a little bit tougher just with the cluster feeding, and he's been a bit fussy around that. But besides that, I feel like we still have a really chill baby. How have I been doing postpartum? So I've been doing really well. I had some baby blues over the weekend, but after the weekend, I feel like I've basically kind of leveled out. I've been feeling very normal, not as like super chipper as I was in the first week, but I haven't had any more like crying for no reason either. On Sunday, when I decided I was going to try on some of my pre-pregnancy clothes because I lost a lot of weight, and I didn't fit my pre-pregnancy clothes yet, and I was like, okay, fine. So when we went to the doctor's appointment on the Monday, I got weighed, and I've lost 20 pounds since giving birth to Thomas, so I'm feeling really great about that. So I decided to try my pre-pregnancy clothes again on Thursday before going to our pre/postnatal class, and I fit into my pants. It's fantastic. Made me really happy, a really great confident boost to know that I can fit into my pre-pregnancy clothes again. Besides that, I have been experiencing night sweats. So it is exactly as it sounds. I wake up in the night and I'm very sweaty, and generally my pillow is like drenched. But it's very normal postpartum to have night sweats. It's one of the ways your body has to release all the extra fluid that your body has been collecting and carrying since pregnancy. So it's very, very normal, as uncomfortable and weird as it is. Normal. So I have been experiencing night sweats. And besides that, I've been feeling pretty good. Wednesday this week was the first time we didn't have someone over since Thomas has come. Every day we've had guests over coming to see, and I love seeing people and showing Thomas off, but it was so nice just to have a day to myself, and I realized that I need to start scheduling more me time. So that is something I'm going to work on going forward, is scheduling my own time for just myself, and not always having people over. As much as I love people, I also just need my own space at times. So that is pretty much everything that I have to share. Thank you so much for joining me for my second week update, and join me in my next video for my week 3 update.